Majestic, isn't it? There was once a prince of Egypt called Thutmose, who was the son of Pharaoh Amenhotep and the grandson of Thutmose III, who succeeded the great queen Hatshepsut. He had many brothers and half-brothers, and because he was Pharaoh's favorite son, they were forever plotting against him. Usually, the plots were to make Pharaoh think that Thutmose was unworthy or unsuitable to succeed him. Sometimes there were attempts to make the people or the priests believe that Thutmose was cruel, extravagant, or didn't honor the gods and would make a bad ruler for Egypt. But once or twice, the plots were aimed at his very life. All these made Thutmose troubled and unhappy. He spent less and less of his time at Thebes or Memphis with Pharaoh's court, and more frequently rode on expeditions into Upper Egypt or across the desert to the 7 great oases. Even when Pharaoh commanded his presence, or his position demanded that he must attend some great festival, he would slip away whenever he could, with some few trusted followers or even alone and in disguise, to hunt on the edge of the desert. Well, as you can see, Thutmose was skilled in all manly exercises. He was a bowman who could plant arrow after arrow in the center of the target. He was a skilled charioteer, and his horses were faster than the wind. Sometimes he would course antelopes for miles across the sandy stretches of the desert. At others, he would seek out savage lions in their lairs among the rocks far up above the banks of the Nile. One day, when the court was in residence at Memphis for the great festival of Re at Heliopolis, a few miles further than the Nile, Thutmose escaped from all the pomp and pageantry to hunt in the edge of the desert. He took with him only 2 servants, and he drove his own chariot up the steep road past Saqqara, where the great step pyramid of Giza stands, and away through the scrub and stunted trees, where the cultivated land of the Nile faded into stony wastes and stretches of sand and rocks to the great Libyan desert. They set off at the first glimmer of dawn so that they might have as much time as possible before the great heat midday, and they coursed the gazelle northwards across the desert for many miles, parallel to the Nile but a few miles far away from it. By the time the sun grew hot for hunting, Thutmose and his 2 servants had reached some point not very far from the great pyramids of Giza, where the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty had built for over 1,200 years before. They stopped to rest under some palm trees. But Thutmose, desiring to be alone and wishing to make his prayer to the great god Harmachis, entered his chariot and drove away past the desert, bidding his servants wait for him. Away sped Thutmose, for the sand was firm and smooth, and at last he drew near to the 3 pyramids of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaura, towering up towards the sky, the burning sun of midday flashing to their golden peaks and glittering down their polished sides like ladders of light leading up to the boat of Re as it sailed across the sky. Wow! Thutmose gazed in awe at these man-made mountains of stone. But most of all his attention was caught by a gigantic head and neck of stone that rose out of the sand between the greatest of the pyramid, and an early buried mortuary temple of huge square stony rocks that stood in either side of the pyramid causeway leading to the distant Nile behind him. In the right foot of the 2nd pyramid, that of the pharaoh Khafra. This was a colossal carving of Harmachis, the god of the rising sun, in the form of a lion with the head of the pharaoh of Egypt, the form he had taken when he became the hunter of the followers of Set. Khafra had caused the Sphinx to be carved out of an outcrop of solid rock that happened to rise above the sand near the processional causeway leading from the Nile to his great pyramid. He had bidden his sculptors to shape the head and face of Harmachis in the likeness of his own. During the long centuries since Khafra had been laid to rest in his pyramid, the sands of the desert had blown away against the Sphinx until it was almost buried. Thutmose could see no more than its head and neck, and a little ridge of the desert to mark the line of its back. For a long while, he stood looking up into the majestic face of the Sphinx, crowned with the royal crown of Egypt that had the cobra's head on its brow and which held in place the folds of embroidered linen which kept the sun from head and neck. Only here the folds were stone, and only the head of the serpent fitted unto the carved rock was of gold. The noonday sun beat mercilessly down upon Thutmose as he gazed up at the Sphinx and prayed for Harmachis for help in all his troubles. Suddenly, it seemed to him that the great stone image began to stir. It heaved and struggled as if trying in vain to throw off the sand that buried its body and paws, and the eyes were no longer carved stone inlaid in lapis lazuli, but shone with life and vision as they looked down upon him. Then the Sphinx spoke to him in great voice, yet kindly as a father speaks to his son. Look upon me, Thutmose, Prince of Egypt, and know that I am Harmachis, your father, the father of all pharaohs of upper and lower lands. It rests with you to become pharaoh indeed, and wear upon your head the double crown of south and north. It rests with you whether or not to sit upon the throne of Egypt, or whether the peoples of the world come and kneel before you in homage. If you indeed become pharaoh, whatever is produced by the two lands shall be yours, together with the tribute from all the countries of the world. Besides all this, long years of life, health, and strength shall be yours. Thutmose, my face is turned towards you. My heart inclines to bring you good things. Your spirit shall be wrapped in mine. But see how the sand closed in around me in every side? It smothers me, it holds me down, it hides me from your eyes. Promise me that you will do all that a good son should do for his father.
Then, as Thutmose stepped forward, the sun seemed to shine from the eyes of Harmachis the Sphinx so brightly that they dazzled him, and the world went black and span around him, so he felt insensible on the sand. When he recovered, the sun was sinking towards the summit of Khafra's pyramid, and the shadow of the Sphinx lay over him. He slowly rose to his feet, and the vision he had seen came rushing back to his mind as he gazed at the great shape half hidden in the sand, which was already turning pink and purple in the evening light.
Harmachis, my father!
He cried.
I call upon you and all the gods of Egypt to bear witness to my oath. If I become pharaoh, the first act of my reign shall to free your image from the sand, and build a shrine to you, and set in it a stone telling in the sacred writings of Kem of your command and how I fulfilled it. Then Thutmose turned to seek his chariot, and a moment later, his servants who had been anxiously searching for him came riding up. Thutmose rode back to Memphis, and from that day, all went well with him. Very soon, Amenhotep proclaimed him publicly as heir to the throne, and not very long afterwards, Thutmose did indeed become king of Egypt, one of her greatest gifts.